First boss you're going to experience in Iceground Citadel will be Lord Morlgar. He's got two main abilities that the raid needs to worry about. First one will be fire lines that come out of the boss, as you'll see the blue lines of fire that come out. To avoid this, you just stand under the boss. Second one will be Bone Spike Graveyard. There'll be random people, 3 people will be spiked on targetable spikes that have to be killed to get them free. Can't be hopped off of, they can't be ice blocked off of, so have to be DPS down. Really easy when the raid's stacked, they just get cleaved. The only person that's not stacked in the group are the 2 tanks and any hunter in the raid. The tanks have to stay stacked because they share damage. Fight's pretty much a 2-phase fight. You're going to have the stack phase and then you'll have the Bone Storm phase. As he Bone Storms, he'll put fire out. In normal, he will not spike people during the Bone Storm, but on heroic he will. Those are the main mechanics of the fight. Some tips and tricks. If you want to keep the boss as far away as possible, you can have the tanks go to one end and a hunter go to the other end, and he'll target the furthest person from him, generally for his Bone Storm. So if you are having issues healing through the phase, you can do that. Other than that, you have the option of keeping the raid closely stacked so that he doesn't go very far, and you can cleave for maximum damage uptime. The second boss of Ice Crown Citadel is Lady Death Whisper. There's a lot of different ways to do this fight, but primarily there's a few things that do not change. There are spawn locations on the left and the right side of the boss that ads will spawn out of. In 10 men it'll alternate one at a time, or per side. On 25 it'll be both sides at the same time, so you have 2 tanks stacked on either side. The boss does not need to be tanked per se during phase 1, other than maybe a tank to taunt it from time to time to keep threats so it's not beating on your melee. Tips and tricks for this fight, there's a few things that will have to be done. Normally we would have the raid stay behind Lady Death Whisper up on the stage, so the ads naturally funnel towards the boss, and you have the tanks pick them up there and cleave them down right in front of the boss, getting maximum uptime on the boss. For phase 1, you're DPSing her mana shield down before she stops spawning ads, and phase 2 you DPS her. On timed intervals, she will do a mind control on 1 to 2 targets. I think it's 1 target on normal, 2 and 20 heroic. But she will do mind control. They need to be CC'd. Sheeps work okay, but the best is Cyclone so that people don't kill them. Always hodge melee DPS if you have the option, even if they are stunned during the coming out of the mind control. Cycloning them is still the best. Going into phase 2, the tanks will get a stacking debuff that lowers the amount of threat that they'll generate, so they should be pushed hard with MDs and TOTs at start. As they get closer on normal, the boss can be taunted, so when it's time to swap, the tanks can taunt. On heroic, we will have to natively force them more threats, so using TOTs and MDs if we do this fight on heroic. It's one of the most bugged fights on on Lore Main, and is normally the last fight progressed on Ice Crown. Other than that, the other thing we may see is this boss being a quest boss during the raid, and at that point you'll have Darnovan spawn. The best way to do it is to have a hunter put a trap there, and you can have a mage continuously CC it with sheep. But if you can spare a priest, you can have a priest mind control to guarantee that it doesn't get attacked by the raid. Main things to watch out for: mind control in phase 1 and 2, D&D in phase 1 and 2 from the boss. She will throw a death and decay. It's bright green instead of red like the player Death Knights. And the ghosts in phase 2. The ghosts will target a random player and run to them. If you are being targeted, running away is the best option, not letting them hit at you. gunship battle is arguably the most neurotic and annoying fight that you'll deal with. It really has nothing to do with the raid. It's just a loot pinata. Currently on Warmane, the fight is bugged very easily and can forcibly not spawn any of the battle mages that come out and freeze the cannons, making it just a DPS fight. Traditionally, if you're going to do the fight properly and it doesn't bug, the battle mage will spawn at intervals, about 30-second intervals. The tank will have to jump over first, then you'll have a handful of melee and or range jump over, kill the battle mage and come back. Traditionally, we would put range in the cannon as they normally aren't the ones jumping because instant damage is best done by melee. However, there's also another strategy that can be done where you just send over range with maxed range and you don't have to send a tank. They can stay on the other boat for the entirety of the fight as long as they don't attack the targets on the front lines of the alliance boat and do not AoE. The fight will be the same on normal and heroic, it's just more damage that has to be put out on heroic. Deathbringer Sourfang is the first Endwing boss that you'll encounter. His main mechanics are very simple. No, the first one is a tank swap that has to be done when he does ruin on the tank. If the tank continues to take damage from the boss, he will heal and generate more energy at a faster rate. So the tanks will swap off on this. It can, if there's a time where there needs to be, for whatever reason, a tank take a longer time, it's best if it's a DK because they can ANS the Rune Strike. The second main mechanic that we'll see is spawning of blood beasts. You position a hunter on either side of the stairs and have them have ice traps down at all times, and they'll instantly pop as soon as the beasts spawn, slowing them from the start. You have a boomkin positioned in the middle of the platform so that they can knock the beasts back as soon as they come down the stairs. Your range should target swap immediately, cross-killing as best possible. So if you are on the left side of the platform, try to target one that's on the right-hand side to have the furthest distance that they must travel. Your melee, although not wise for them to try to pull thread on them, they can melee them and attack them, but however, don't try to waste your time AoEing. It does 90% reduced damage. Chains of Ice are amazing here. Holy Wraths will stun them. Hodges are good as well. When the boss reaches 100 energy, which he inevitably will do, more than likely than not, more than once during the raid encounter, he'll put Mark the Fallen Champion on a target. That person will continually take damage throughout the fight and must be healed. If it becomes too intensive, they can be hit with a hand of protection to reduce all physical damage just because it's physical damage. And even if that is not enough, they can be divine intervention by a pally that can be B-raised so that they're no longer taking damage and not increasing the amount of energy that the boss generates. For each mark that he goes out, he will generate energy faster and faster. So it kind of creates a soft enrage. Depending on the group, they will use Bloodlust at the start of the fight for maximum damage uptime, but during progression it is often used in the sub 30%, so that when the healing is the most intensive, that the healers are also benefiting from Lust.